Who are the top 10 tight ends in the 2026 NFL Draft? Stay tuned as we share our rankings before the season kicks off. All right, Ryan, we're finally here. We're finishing up with summer scouting. It has been a sprint towards week one. College football season already started, but the big games, they're about to happen. This is our last position group, and I think we're finishing off with a very interesting group. There are some really surprisingly impactful prospects in this tight end class. I'm not saying that it is going to be a historic year for tight ends, but there's potential. We've talked a lot about how there's these position groups this year where there's some boom or bust guys. I think that absolutely applies for this tight end group.
Can I be a little nerdy for a second, Joe?
Go for it. Go for it. You're saying that on this channel, you're asking for permission?
I'm sorry. If you want a true Y that's going to put his hand in the dirt, play in line, and be physical in the run game, then this is not the class that you are going to like. But if you like an FH type player that can move around, can line up in the slot, can even play some boundary and some 3x1 sets, can do a lot of different things, then you're going to love this class. Because I was looking at it before we started, Joe. I would say out of my top 10 that we'll talk about today, 7 of them I would qualify as Fs, not Ys, not inline guys, flex guys. So it's just a very unique class because there's a lot of receiving upside, but there's still a little bit of a hole, I think, in this class is like that true do-it-all, all-purpose type tight end that can impact both the run and the pass game at a high level. Like, I don't think we necessarily have that guy, but I think we have a lot of really nice complementary parts to a passing game and some guys with high ceilings as pass receivers as well.
Well, it's kind of part of the battle these days of trying to find tight end prospects is that naturally we're going to end up in this spot where we got to draft guys that are playing in systems that don't really have responsibilities that translate. So there's going to be a lot of guys that I think can turn into solid inline guys that just need to work on improving their impact as blockers. But that being said, you're probably not going to hear a lot of blocking anecdotes on today's show. That's probably the very, very simple way of doing it. I'm going to rip off my 10 through 6 here, and then we'll immediately get to yours, and then we'll talk about any similarities that we have. My 10 through 6. Miles Kitselman from Tennessee. Number 9, Jack Endries from Texas. Number 8, Michael Trigg from Baylor. Number 7, Justin Jolly from NC State. And then number 6, John Michael Gillenborg from Wyoming. Ryan, your 10 through 6, what do you got?
John Michael Gillenborg sounds like he would be on some type of weird teen movie or something. Like he'd be the actor.
Exactly my thoughts.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas or something. Number 10 for me, Joe Royer from Cincinnati. Number 9, I have Jack Endries, the tight end out of Texas that was the transfer from Cal. I then have John Michael Gillenborg from Wyoming at number 8. Number 7 for me is Miles Kitselman from Tennessee. And then at number 6, I have Michael Trigg from Baylor.
Let's talk just really quickly about Endries from Texas because he's coming in from Cal. He's not a good blocker. We already established that we're going to be talking about this, so he's not a very good blocker. Very high blocker, which is very frustrating because he's got the build that I think that he could be an impactful blocker. He catches a lot of guys in his chest too, which is a bit of a problem.
Yes.
But I think that there's some straight line speed to be had. He's not like a burner. He's not some like crazy fast guy. But deceptively, he does attack space pretty well. I think that this is one of these players that ends up being an early day 3 player who could potentially end up being a team's number 1 tight end. If there was one guy I were to project that unexpectedly carved out a role for a team for an extended period of time, he feels like one of those players.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see Endries, especially in the Texas offense, because obviously I feel like we haven't talked enough about Texas from a college football perspective, Joe. Losing Gunnar Helm was like a really big loss for that offense, you know? Like he had 60-plus catches, over 700 yards. Endries on a less potent passing attack, and he obviously had a very good quarterback with him, Fernando Mendoza, but it was still not a great passing attack because the pass blocking was not very good. It was just not an overly creative offense, just overall. So I'm very interested if Andrews just kind of hits the ground running and becomes kind of a de facto different player than Gunnar Helm, because Gunnar Helm is a little bit bigger, so he's going to play a little bit more in line than what Andrews did. But is this a guy that is the focal point of the passing offense, potentially for Texas, kind of going with guys like Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore? He definitely has nice movement skills. He can win a little bit after the catch. I think he has good straight line speed. So there's a lot to like of him as a kind of a movement-based tight end for sure.
Can you touch on Kitzelman from Tennessee really quick? You put me on to him, and you started sending me clips about how he was this guy that you were juiced up about that nobody was talking about. I think that him and Ethan Davis create a pretty unique tight end pairing, which is like the last thing that you would talk about for a Josh Heupel offense of all things. I don't know what his production ends up being like this year, but could you talk a little bit about him?
Yeah, no, he's one of the bigger tight ends on this list. I think he was verified at like 6'4" and 7'8", so right around 6'5", and he was 259 pounds in the spring, Joe.
Oof,
so like he's your
big boy.
He's a bigger body tight end. And Tennessee asks him to do a lot of different things. Like they'll play him as a wing, they'll play him as an H, they'll motion him across the formation, but they also will play him in line and ask him to block. And there was one rep, I forget what game it was. It was his most productive game. What was his most productive game last year? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I'll check while you keep talking.
He had one game where he had like 6 receptions for like 90-something yards. It was by far his biggest usage because he only had like 22 catches for over 300 yards last year. So he wasn't like the mainstay focal point of the Tennessee offense, but he was a sneaky player for his usage, man. Like very
Kentucky, 97 yards against Kentucky.
Yeah. So he had a great game against Kentucky, but I was watching and I'm like, okay, this kid is a better athlete than people are going to give him credit for. He's very smooth working the intermediate section of the field especially, and he's got a big frame to be able to play outside of his frame in the passing attack, extend for the football. But there was one play where I think it was a jet sweep or an end around where they had him leading out in space, and he absolutely obliterated a safety out in space. So like this kid will block. He's a good inline blocker, a solid to good inline blocker, but he's really good in the screen and out in space in movement-based stuff as well. So one of the better all-around tight end, Kitzelman, but he's not a guy, and he's also a former transfer from Alabama, just kind of a backstory. He was a JUCO kid, Alabama, now at Tennessee. I think he's a very underrated football player, but he does everything just at a pretty good level, man. So I think he's going to at least be a really good tight end too in the NFL, Kitzelman.
All right, let's get into our top fives here. A name that has been hyped up a lot this summer, and you are actually a lot lower on this guy than I thought you were going to be. Joe Royer from Cincinnati.
Joe Royer's solid. He's good.
He's a good player. I think that it's one of those position groups, by the way, where there's like the grab bag where you throw in the names and then you shake them up and then you can kind of just pull one out, and they're all in the same relative range. I will argue that the top 4, that there's a little bit of a separation of athleticism and talent in the top 4, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, solidness is the key thing here. He's been one of the more productive tight ends in college football in his time at Cincinnati. I think that the catch point stuff is tremendous, and his concentration of being able to come down with the football is a huge boost, why he is an easily projectable prospect. I think that the floor is what supports a guy like this, where if I'm drafting a guy the beginning of day 3 or maybe a little bit earlier than that, I'm hoping at the very least he's going to stick on my team as my number 2 tight end. And I think that Royer is one of those players that I feel pretty comfortable with him sticking there.
I think that my I don't want to say it's a hang up with Royer, because again, he's in my top 10, and I think that he has an NFL career for sure. My thing with him, Joe, is I feel like his body's a little bit maxed out. Like he's a dense dude, and I don't know how much more powerful he's going to get, right? Like I think that he is closer to a finished product than a couple of these other players as far as like the projection beyond the 2025 college football season. And I just think that he, compared to a couple of these other guys as well, that I'm going to be in my top 5, he's a little bit tight, right? In terms of ability to get in and out of breaks, create separation as a route runner. I agree. He's a strong dude, and he's actually pretty good in a straight line as well. Like I like him better in a straight line than I do change of direction stuff. So I think that there's a little bit of limitation on him, but like, yeah, I think he's going to play in the NFL. He's going to be a solid contributor to a room. I just don't necessarily see starter in Joe Royer. I think he's more a tight end 2 in a good tight end room, if that makes sense.
All completely justified concerns to bring up there. So completely understand those. Your number 5, who do you got?
I got Lawson Lucky from Georgia at number 5. We talked about F tight ends. they don't even ask him to play in line usually, right? Like that is what Oscar Delp does in that offense. Oscar Delp is much more the hand in the dirt type of dude. Lawson Lucky will play some wing, will play some H in 2 tight end formation, but like he's not a guy that is necessarily going to be that big hand in the dirt type of dude. He's also going to play a lot in the slot. The reason I like Lawson Lucky a lot, Joe, he's a great route runner for his size, man. Like he snaps off some routes where you're just like, all right, dude, like you look like a wide receiver, and he creates easy separation. And he did it at points where he was playing in the boundary against like true defensive backs, like corners. And I'm like, okay, so this kid can really break off routes. And I think that he is a really smooth overall athlete. He's good straight line speed. He's got really good change of direction. I think he could win after the catch. The 2 biggest hangups, as I already said, he's not the biggest guy in all time, so I don't think he's ever going to be plus in the run game. He has some effort, but like it's just not going to be his bag. Like he's just not going to be an inline tight end. And there's a couple concentration drops on film where you're just like, bro, like come on. Like that's something that you need to clean up ultimately because you are a pass game weapon. You're not an all-around tight end on the NFL level. But I do think in an offense that accentuates his strengths and asks him to be that de facto big slot, H-type player that's going to move around a ton, this kid could be a mismatch weapon because he understands how to create separation and how to attack blind spots really well.
So for me, I have Lawson Lucky at number 3. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that it really does shine what he is as an athlete. It's really hard to find tight ends that are as fluid, getting in and out of breaks, showing impact after the catch. I think his feet are tremendous. You mentioned the issues with the blocking. The other part that comes up for me too, and this I think is an important conversation for tight ends, but it's not as frustrating or worrying as we get with a receiver. When a guy like Lucky doesn't have much college production and doesn't have a game where he pops off.
Well, because there's six tight ends on that roster, man. There's like 6 tight ends on that roster. It's crazy.
Which is annoying. Yes. It's just something that I always make note of, like, hey, why did this happen? Is it because the room's crowded and the offense is crowded? Or is it because he is not somebody who truly produces game-by-game dominance? Is he not a guy that Bobo thinks could be a reliable target that they can continue to lean on? I think that he could be, and I think that they should have leaned on him more considering how bad the receiver room was last year for Georgia. But I still feel pretty confident in him as a prospect that he is going to step in and be a solid target for a team in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he's going to take a nice step forward this year because like Oscar Delp didn't make my list. He's another guy where it's just like Oscar Delp does a lot of things very solidly, but he's just not anything special, especially in the passing game. No. But I really think Lawson Lucky, there is a lot of upside to unlock there just as a pure pass game mismatch weapon. There's a lot there. Just it's about consistency and being consistently targeted. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Georgia this year is probably going to be more of a run-centric team now that they're going from Carson Beck to Gunnar Stockton, so maybe the volume doesn't change at all. But I really think that he's a guy that can do more if you put more on his plate, potentially.
All right, number 4. Oh, actually, let me go number 4, because I forgot that I was going before you. Number 4 for me is Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. This dude has so many shades of Evan Ingram, where he is a huge threat after the catch. He's a very explosive, flexible athlete, changes direction, moves super, super easily when he's got the ball in his hands. The only thing that, again, to continuously reiterate a lot of these problems is that he's not a good blocker. I don't think that he'll ever be a good blocker. I don't think that he shows any power or desire or impact to be a good blocker. I knew he's a former quarterback, so we're asking for a lot.
I was going to say
here.
It's like he was a former quarterback or something, you know?
I almost wonder if maybe he should just slim down a hair and just play receiver, just be a really big receiver. Part of me wonders that. I think though that he could be a gadget weapon, kind of like Evan Ingram has established himself in the NFL. He can attack up the seam. His route running's horrendous, by the way. I have no expectation for him to be.
Oh, really?
No, okay, it's not good. He is again. He's transitioning from quarterback. It's not something that I would be exactly jazzed up about and I would be pitching as one of his better skill sets. But I think that as he's getting better and he's improving and making this transition, the athleticism eventually takes over and that route running does improve. I say that to say, imagine how much more impactful he could be if his route running was better. He could be even more impactful.
So I like Eli Stowers a lot more than you, it seems. Like, consider.
Where do you have him?
I have a number 2. I like Eli Stowers a lot.
Vanderbilt. So I have him at number 4. What's the big?
I don't know.
Okay, well, where was I off there?
How you described him just sounded like
I like him.
I
think for the description of what I want in a tight end, he doesn't do a lot of those things.
Okay, all right. And I just realized I missed out on talking about Michael Trigg, because that way was one of the more fascinating tight ends that I watched this summer so far. The Baylor kid he was the kid that was at USC, then Ole Miss, then Baylor. Like bizarre college football track that he's had. But getting back on topic to Eli Stowers, who again is number 2 for me. I like the route running a little bit more than you do. I don't think it's pristine. It's definitely not lost and lucky. Like it's nothing to that degree. But one, he's 6'3" and 3/8", but he's 240 pounds, right? So like he's a pretty densely built dude. I love him after the catch though, Joe. Like they'll screen gain him. They'll even do shovel passes to him. Like they'll get him the football and just let him go, right? Like be an athlete, because as you mentioned, he was a former highly ranked quarterback that was at Texas A&M. He went out to New Mexico State, lost the quarterback spot to Diego Pavia, and then transfers with Diego Pavia to be his top pass catcher this year for Vanderbilt. Had over 600 yards last year, really productive player. I think that he wins above the rim as well. There was a play that I highlighted on Twitter this week where he was literally playing into the boundary, and they threw a 50-50 ball where he had to get himself in great position, box out, and win at the catch point deep down the field, like a 40-plus yard throw. So I think that he has good ball skills. I think he's great after the catch, and I think the route running doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you. Like I think that this kid is a starting tight end for sure, but I think he could be a plus starting tight end potentially in the right system.
It doesn't bother me to a degree that I think that it holds him back, because ultimately he's one of the best athletes in the class. And at a certain point, like I was rounding out my take on him, I think at a certain point we could see by like year 2 or year 3 in the NFL, he's a lot more refined considering the leap that he's made from making such transition from quarterback to tight end. So
have you seen
worried.
His, not to belabor on Eli Stowers, but have you seen his projected testing numbers that have been out there?
No. What is he supposed to run?
He's supposed to run in the high 4.4s, and he's supposed to have a 40-plus inch vertical.
Oh, so he is Evan Ingram.
Like he's super athlete. Yeah,
he is Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram without the drop issues, right? Without the drop issues, Evan Ingram. So yeah.
That's quite interesting. I'm excited to see what he does. So he was your number 2.
He was.
I already revealed my number 3. Who is your number 3?
I didn't do my number 4, so I need to backtrack to 4 here.
My apologies. Give number 4.
Yes. Number 4, I have Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, who is listed at like 6'4", 240 something. Don't believe you. I think he's a little bit lighter than that. I do not think he's 240 something pounds that he's listed. But Joe, he is, a lot of what I just said about Eli Stowers is also true of Kenyon Sadiq. Like he is dynamite after the catch, and he's explosive, and he will hurdle dudes. He'll run by dudes. Like this kid is a exceptional athlete. Probably going to be a great tester as well. They don't ask him to play in the run game much because they asked Terrence Ferguson to kind of have that role last year because he was the second tight end in the offense. So the production is not great. Here's my big issue with Kenyon, which I just can't fully buy into, Joe. I'm buying into him as a top 5 tight end class just because he's a freaky athlete. But his route tree and his usage is just so basic, right? Like it's overs, it's flats, it's just slide routes. Like it is just easy stuff to get the football in his hands. I don't know if this kid can run routes really. Like I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen him really get targeted deep down the field outside of something like off of play action where he just runs like a corner route or something. So like I want to see usage. I want to see volume. I want to see what type of just dynamic he can have. Everyone's excited about him around the Oregon program, so they expect him to take a massive jump. But like the usage is just something that I need to see. Like I need to believe it before I fully buy in.
I'm sadly buying in like a dummy. He's number 2 for me. Dude, his production is so little.
I thought he was going to be number 1 after our text conversation about him.
No. Well, I was kind of setting the table for him to maybe not even be in my top 5. But after I finished watching him, I gave him a very high grade. I gave him a late second round grade. I see a path where this kid ends up being a huge threat in the NFL. And I'm really hoping that this year he gets so much more so many more targets, gets so much more exposure, because he can be so hard to keep up with. You talked about there and you highlighted who he is athletically. I think that he's the most explosive athlete of any of the tight ends in this class. Mm-hmm. The one thing, though, that was a very pleasant surprise, he wasn't asked to block often.
Yeah.
But they did ask him to do it. They did ask him to put his hand in the dirt and to play along the line of scrimmage. And I, at first, didn't think anything of it. But as I started watching more and more, the kid's physical. The kid was trying. The kid was going hard. He wasn't doing it with great technique and great angles and good leverage, but he was willing to hit. He was one of the few tight ends that I watched that I thought, for a player who was mostly a receiver, a receiving threat, that he was actually willing to get his nose dirty. I really think that there is a lot to work with here, and for how raw he is, the potential of him being a mid-first round pick is absolutely there. It absolutely is. I see the rise happening, but it's going to require a big, massive leap for that to happen.
His blocking, I thought, was very similar to Michael Trigg that I mentioned previously, because Trigg's another like freaky athlete, like absolute freaky. But he played mostly slot for Baylor, right? Talking about Trigg, and they would just kind of like, he would replace, and he would come on some like tight end counter stuff, and so he would do some of it, but it was just like he just wasn't asked to do it so much. But like, yes, he has effort. He'll put it on the line at times. I just don't know if the physical profile will ever say plus blocker in the NFL. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I've basically given away my entire top five.
Yes,
you're up now with your number three.
Here's the curveball. You ready?
Okay, you scared me pre-show with this. Who is it?
Matthew Hibner from SMU is my number three.
Oh, so you're going against RJ Maryland. You're going all in on
RJ
Hibner.
Maryland, Joe. I don't know if you recently saw this. He's down to 222 pounds, and he is a starting wide receiver for SMU. Do you know why this happened, Joe? Do you know why this happens? Let me tell you a story.
No, elaborate.
Matthew Hibner was a former Michigan tight end, was a backup for Michigan, transferred to SMU before last year. So what happened is that RJ Maryland was a known commodity for SMU. He's been a known commodity for a couple years. He was having a really good year last year from a receiving standpoint. That's what he is. He's another F tight end. That's kind of what he's been at SMU. But he got hurt about halfway through the season, talking about Maryland, which is why he came back. When he got hurt, though, Hibner took over, and Hibner had some games, man, where you're like, oh, and this kid is about 6'5", 250 plus pounds. He's got a bigger frame, plays well in line. The best blocker that I have mentioned today, by the way, best blocker I've mentioned today. But he's smooth.
Remembering this kid. I'm starting to remember this kid.
Yeah, he's smooth.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, he's smooth. He's got a good catch radius. He had a couple really good games where he started popping off later in the year because he had opportunities. And he was so good, Joe, for them down the stretch. They basically made it a point of RJ Maryland's going to lose some weight and he's going to play wide receiver. And because we need to get Matthew Hibner on the field more. Like, he needs to play, and they need both those guys to play on the field. So RJ Maryland is listed at 6'4", 240 pounds on the roster. But in the Blesto NFS area, he was 222 pounds this spring. So unless he gained 18 pounds since the spring, which he didn't, he's losing weight. He's not gaining weight. It's just the listing of colleges, right? So he's in the 220-something pound range because he's playing wide receiver. He is listed on the depth chart as a wide receiver. Hibner is the number one tight end for SMU, and I think that this kid is going to be the big riser in the tight end class because there's some folks, and we know a scout that we've talked to in a chat about Matthew Hibner, where he is a high grade from one particular NFL team right this second, and that's without the hopefully 2025 season bump of him being the full-time guy in that tight end room for a full season now. So I am in on Matthew Hibner, best blocking tight end on this list. I think there is still some upside to tap into as a receiver.
I'll take your word for it. That's exciting. I didn't realize that we had a guy like that was...
He reminds me of Cade Otton. Did you like Cade Otton? I liked Cade Otton coming out of Washington.
He was fine.
He reminds me of Cade Otton.
He was fine. I'm intrigued by that. That is a name to write down, folks. This is why you watch this show. That leaves us off with our number one guy. You gave all your top fives outside of the number one guy, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. You and I are on the same page, and we did an analysis of this guy. Max Klare from Ohio State, who transferred in from Purdue. We're talking about all these spots that certain players are held back by. Klare is, to me, the most well-rounded tight end in the class. Moves really well, transitions out of his cuts, solid route runner. He shows a willingness to block, and I think that there is a higher impact for one of these high receiving guys as a blocker. He's probably the best blocker of the guys that had a lot of production as a receiver. And I think that also the speed, he moves really, really well. Yeah. He's not going to burn on his 40 time, but he'll probably test among some of the top numbers.
6'7", right?
Yeah.
Fine. Right. Good, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your comp for him that you gave when we did that breakdown, calling him Zach Ertz, has really stuck with me. And I really think that this season, where there's going to be a lot of attention slowing down Jeremiah Smith, there's a real shot that Klare ends up having a big, big year.
Yeah, they've been raving about him in Ohio State land. So apparently he's made a nice impression on them. He had 50 receptions last year for over 600 yards for Purdue. Nobody talked about him though, Joe, because why? He was playing for Purdue, and if you would have spotted Purdue 34 points last year in every single football game, they would have went 6-6. Did you hear that stat?
Yes, that's insane. That's insane.
They would have been 6-6 last year. They were 1-11 for people that don't watch college football. They would have been 6-6 last year if you gave them a free 34 points before the game even started. You're up 34-0. You're up, dude. Wild stats. So no one talked about Max Klare. But Max Klare, like Zach Ertz coming out of Stanford and what he did with the Philadelphia Eagles, especially early in his career, is a outstanding route runner. Is he a freaky athlete like a Kenyon Sadiq? No, he's not a freaky athlete, but he's a good athlete who can move and has great change of direction. As a receiving tight end, I think that he has everything that you want for him to be a high volume guy in the NFL level potentially. I think he's going to be a 70, 80 catch tight end at his peak in the NFL, maybe 900 plus yards, like similar to what Zach Ertz has been for the most part in the NFL. So yeah, another guy that about 240 pounds. He has effort in the run game, but he's not a blocker. Like he's never going to be like a plus blocker, but he's okay enough. And that's exactly what Zach Ertz was in his career. Zach Ertz was okay enough in the run game for it to be passable. Never good though, just okay. But his passing upside is why he has carved out such a great NFL career. And I think Max Klare could have a similar path.
I'm excited for all these guys. Folks, I need you to comment below. Who did we miss? Who do you like the most of the group that we brought up? Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.